Welcome to the NetSuite Data Validation session. In our many years of doing data implementations and consulting, one of the biggest mistakes we see people is not doing enough data validation, and then people have to call us back and to fix these problems. So we're going to give you some background on the data migration process. We're going to talk about the lists that were uploaded, the transactions and activities that were uploaded, and the two ways that you would do the validation, and also share with you the top 5 common errors that we see when we do our validations. So here's a quick overview of the data migration process. You identify the data you want to migrate, you prepare the CSV file with that data, you upload it into NetSuite, we resolve the issues, and then we validate. And if anywhere along here we make a mistake, we're going to have to repeat this process. And our goal is to share the mistakes that we've made and our clients have made so that you don't make it in the future. Here are the what we call list that you have to upload. There's the chart of accounts, there's the list of employees, there's a list of customers and vendors, and then there's one on fixed assets. And in future sessions, we'll dive into how we upload each of these separately, but assume that you've done this already. And then we also upload transactions and activities. These are the details, and that's typically trial balances, ending balances, the journal entries, AR transactions, and also AP transactions. So how do we do the validation? There are 2 ways to validate, and the first method is after each upload, you check if all the data imported are in the correct fields in NetSuite itself. So this is one record at a time. It can be very time consuming. Or number 2, export the data and validate by comparing the original file to what's in NetSuite, what you exported to the original file to see. And the second method is great when you have thousands and thousands of rows of data. You can then use all the features of Excel. So we'll actually do a demo to show you, but here's some quick screenshots to show you. Option 1, when you're validating in NetSuite. So let's say you've uploaded for a vendor, Jimmy Smith. Once you've done the upload, you can then go into the vendor file for Jimmy Smith and look at his name, the billing addresses, and look at when this was completed. And that's how you would validate, but that's one record at a time, and it can be very time consuming. The second option we mentioned here is we're showing you a screenshot. You go into the vendor section, there's the green icon where you can actually export all of this, and once you do the export, you can see all of the files, and in our case, we've just loaded 2 or 3 files for you so that you can see this. Here are the top 5 common errors when we've seen clients do the uploading or when we've had to do it ourselves. The first one is the numbers aren't in a number format. If a field is using numbers and that number has commas, the upload will cause an error. NetSuite doesn't allow commas in numbers during the upload process. Number 2 is the headers have empty cells. This error occurs because you previously had some data in those empty cells. If you just cleared the contents without deleting the whole column or the whole row, then it would cause an error. This is because even though you've cleared the contents in Excel by just using the delete or the backspace button, Excel stores information in those empty cells, and NetSuite recognizes the information and says that the fields aren't populated properly. Number 3, in Excel, if you use an internal ID, but in NetSuite you don't map it to the correct internal ID. An example of this is if the subsidiary name is sub1 and the internal ID is just number 1, you forget to map it during the mapping process. It's a common mistake is the reference names is usually the default and the user forgets to change the reference names. Number 4 is journal entries don't balance. If the journal entries don't balance because the debits and the credits the journal entry will not post. This is a common error because sometimes when the data is exported from the old ERP system, it contains more than 2 decimal places, such as 0.0987. That may round up to 10 cents, but you don't recognize it in Excel that it doesn't balance. So then you actually have to individually look at the cells to see which of these tiny journal entries, debits and credits, don't balance. And number 5, for journal entries, the subsidiaries are not grouped together during the upload. This error happens if you're posting multiple journal entries with different subsidiaries. If the journal entry lines are not grouped together by subsidiary, it will cause an error. Next up, we're going to show you in NetSuite itself a demo of how to do the validation and the export. Now for the validation in NetSuite. To view one of the individual transactions that you uploaded, we'll look at the vendor example. Go to List, Relationships, Vendors. Click on View next to the vendor we want to view the fields for. In this example, we're looking for an individual vendor with the name Jimmy Smith. To validate, make sure that all the right data fields are in the right map or mapped to the right fields. We could see name and address is correct, which is the data that we uploaded. So that's the example of how you can validate within NetSuite. Of course, this is time-consuming if you have thousands of records. This only works when you have a handful of records. Next, we're going to show you how to do the validation by exporting the data from NetSuite into Excel. Here's an example of how to export the data. Exporting allows you to more quickly validate by using Excel features like counting transactions or totaling numbers, summing large numbers. Go to List, Relationships, Vendors. Click on the green Excel icon on the top left. Once you've hit the Excel download button, you can now see the Excel file. So click on the Excel file. This is what the file looks like. So now you see all of the records that you've imported. You can look at them at a glance rather than one by one in each individual transaction. So that's how you validate using Excel. I hope this session was helpful, and we'll talk to you soon.